Welcome. So welcome back to Krokaru Channel, and today is video number 1 of the Reality of Japan series. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about 3 ways to identify or recognize a good teaching company. And we do have a special guest today. Guess who it is? All right, let's go find out. All right, so let's welcome our special guest today, Sophie. So I'm sure if you've watched our previous videos before, you do know Sophie. And Sophie, do you have anything to say?
If you haven't watched my previous video before, please check the link below. Please figure out what I do with my job.
Yay! I'm so happy that I'm not alone today. So Sophie, thank you for coming and being with us today.
I'm happy to see you again.
All right, so as I mentioned in my introduction, today we're going to be talking about 3 ways to identify good teaching companies. So to start off, we will go into the types of teaching companies here in Japan. So you do have 2 types of teaching companies, ALT companies as well as Eikaiwa companies. So Sophie knows a lot about ALT companies. So Sophie, what is an ALT position or, ALT company?
So ALT stands for Assistant Language Teacher, and you're usually going to be working in schools, usually public schools, occasionally private, and you're usually working with a Japanese teacher who's usually like the homeroom teacher of that class, and you're just teaching together.
Right. And then I do have a little bit of experience with Eikaiwa positions. So Eikaiwa positions are basically the opposite. So it's working for a private company, and usually they will have like classrooms in malls, big buildings and central locations. So usually with Eikaiwa positions, you find that the working hours or the working time, usually they start off in the afternoon, like it could be from 3 to like 10. I don't know, is it the same with ALT positions?
No, it's totally different. I usually started at like 8-10 a.m., which is really early for me. And then I would be finished by around like 3:55 kind of time.
That's so early, because like with Eikaiwa positions, like you definitely have to start like late afternoon and
you go
finish
until
at like 10.
night,
Right,
yeah,
until like 10 p.m. And then also, I don't know, with the salary with ALT positions, like what would you say is like the range of salaries?
I think it really depends on the company, but usually anywhere between like 210 to like 270, somewhere within that range. You could get more if you had certain skills, maybe like education background, but it really depends on the company.
I guess it could be kind of similar with Eikaiwa positions. Like usually the range is about maybe 210 to about 280, 290. And depending with the company. And I think with Eikaiwa positions as well, there's an option for you to take on more classes if you want, and then that way you can kind of earn, more money. But I don't know, with ALT positions, can you do that?
Usually not. Usually it's in your contract. It's sort of against the rules to take on side work, in case it distracts you, I guess, from your actual job.
I guess that makes sense. And then like the other thing as well, I know you mentioned before, like with ALT positions, you're working with a Japanese teacher, but then like with, Eikaiwa positions, you're basically the only teacher.
So scary.
I know, right? Because sometimes you have like 10 young kids, and it can be quite challenging if you're working by yourself like that.
As an ALT, you always have either the homeroom teacher in an elementary school or the Japanese teacher of English in like middle and high school. Depending on like the school's situation, you might be sort of T1, like you're leading the classes, which happened a lot to me because I was in elementary school. But at least I still had the teacher there to do like the discipline side of things. Like
really nice.
if kids weren't listening, they would be like, "Hey, listen to Sophie." Which that took a lot of like stress off of me.
Oh, that's really nice, because like with Eikaiwa positions, basically you are usually the only teacher in the classroom. So if you have like 12 kids and it's difficult, you just have to make it work. But then I know for some companies, sometimes if they do know that, this class is exceptionally difficult, they might, arrange for like a team teach so that the other teacher comes to kind of support, but not always. You just have to do what you have to do. And then with Eikaiwa positions, usually they have like a wide range of, students. So it could be from 0 years old to like 80 years old. Like it could basically be any kind of age. I don't know, with ALT, obviously there is like an age limit, right?
Yeah, so usually you're going to be assigned a certain type of school. Some people might go to different types, but for me, I was only in elementary schools, and so my classes changed each year, but I taught anywhere between 1st to 6th grade, so you know, it's just normal school age. And my friends were in like junior and high school, but you know, the oldest is going to be like 18, so you don't have any like adults.
Right. And like with Eikaiwa, where you could be teaching an 80-year-old, you know, that's retired.
It's hard to adjust
exactly.
from the different
right, which is kind of challenging a little bit. And then with ALT positions as well, like would you say the location, what would you say are usually, you know, the type of locations that you might be assigned to?
I guess it might depend on your board of education or where you are, but because you're usually going to be in a public school, like you can imagine almost every like village in Japan has a school. So it could be like anywhere. Like I know of people who were, you know, like an hour away from the nearest restaurant or kombini, like really inaka, and but some people are in like city locations, so it really depends.
Right. I think with Eikaiwa positions, usually they are in the big cities because I mean, usually, I don't know, this is just me assuming that people who want to take private English lessons are usually people in big cities. So usually Eikaiwas would be in a big city, but of course you also have like Eikaiwa schools in the Inaka area, because some have figured out that, you know, in big cities there's like 20,000 maybe Eikaiwa schools, so you know, better go to, you know, the Inaka areas where there isn't much competition over there. And then also with like Eikaiwas, I know the lesson contents, usually Eikaiwa companies design their own curriculum to teach the students, and you basically have to maybe come up with activities like games and, you know, things like that. But I think with ALT positions it's probably not the same.
Yeah, usually within the school it's whatever the government has assigned as being like, this is the English curriculum. And so we were working within like the textbooks that they used in every single school, so mostly the ALTs, if you mention certain textbooks, they're going to know what you're talking about.
Right, I can understand. And then like, okay, fine, so moving on to like the 3 points that you need to think about or look at to recognize a good company. So maybe I'll pass it on to Sophie. Like, Sophie, what would you say are like the warnings you need to kind of, you know, check out for?
So I think if you're coming from overseas, there's a lot to think about with like initial costs and stuff. Some ALT companies, they will pay for your flight to get here, and then during training they'll pay for your hotel, or they might give you some money for expenses depending. Like I think when I was doing training they gave us like lunch and dinner. It was included as part of the training, I think. And so you kind of want to look at the bigger picture like that, because there's a lot of ALT companies where you have to pay for your flight to get to Japan. You might have to pay for a hotel, especially right now with quarantine and stuff. So yeah, I think that's like a big thing to think about. Not just the salary, but everything like initial costs.
And even like with things like commuting as well, like that's another thing, because I know usually companies do cover commuting costs, like to and from, you know, work, but then that's not always the case, is it?
Yeah, like some ALT companies, they might not cover the commute, or they might say, because you're a driver, you're going to be in a driving position, but you have to pay to rent the car. Because, you know, I guess because you can use it for your personal life too. They're like, well, it's your responsibility, but it's still an extra added cost.
Exactly.
They may or may not give you extra money for being in a driving position. Depends on the company, I guess.
Which can get quite expensive, I think. Because I think on average, I don't know, I just am assuming like on average, I think the gas money here in, not the gas money, sorry, the gas,
like
gas prices, they're quite high, I think. I've heard people say, I don't know.
I guess it might depend on the region. It was a long time ago that I drove, but other people, they might leave it till in advance. But you should, I think, know like at least a week in advance where you're going. But I would say it's kind of a red flag to me if you don't know like at least a week in advance. Because I have heard some stories of people who've arrived in Tokyo and they think they're going somewhere, and then the company says, hey, actually there's no position there.
Oh my gosh.
You have to go here. And they end up quitting and just looking for another job. But if you can imagine, like when you first come to Japan, you've like just got your visa, you can't speak any Japanese, and you're like, I can't afford to go back home. But I don't have a job, I'm gonna lose my visa. Like,
it can be very stressful. So definitely, like you're saying, it's a big red flag. If you don't know the location where you're going, it's kind of like a red flag. And then with like other things like life support and stuff like that, with ALT companies, they usually provide life support, I think.
Yeah, I think like some companies, they might actually have like the ALT apartment.
Right.
So you're basically going into your predecessor's apartment, and because of that, it might already be furnished. Sometimes it's kind of old stuff, or it's like other person's mess, but you just kind of take it. But depending on the situation, like you might be asked, oh, you have to go find a place yourself. And that can be really stressful.
Very stressful, because you don't know. And the other thing, like in Japan, like you know how it is, like for new apartments, like the deposit and the startup costs very, very high. So if a company doesn't assist with that, you really need to think about it, because it's really hard. And I think, I don't know if you can easily get to sign, like, you know, a lease for an apartment whilst you're overseas. I don't know. Could you do that? Or
I guess it's possible in the company, but it can be really difficult. Like, especially a lot of companies require a guarantor. So if you're overseas, a lot of the time they want to have a guarantor who's in Japan. And a lot of companies will not get involved in that because it's potentially quite risky. So it can be really difficult,
I think so,
to find a place on your own.
Exactly, right. Okay, so just to recap, the 3 points you need to consider, or you can identify good companies by.
Number 1 would be money. So not just the monthly salary, but just the annual salary. What kind of deductions are they doing? Are they prorating for certain months? That kind of thing. Do they cover your commute time? Will they cover your initial costs, like your flight to Japan? That kind of thing.
Okay, and then number 2 is the area. Do you know the area before you come to Japan? Because if they do not want to tell you the area, that's a kind of like a red flag. So you need to consider that. You need to know where you're going exactly. And point number 3
would be life support. So are they going to help you find a house? Are they going to help you set up things like your internet, your bank account? Do they offer training? Is it just once, or is it all throughout the year? That kind of thing can be really helpful as an ALT.
Right, true. This is it for today's video in the Reality of Japan series. So video number 2 is going to be about women's safety here in Japan. So please look forward to that video. It's going to be quite interesting. We'll talk about some of the things that women face here in Japan. So anyways, thank you always for watching. If you have any comments, questions, please leave them down below. But that's it from today for us. So until next time.